My name is Cindy Al, and I am the community director at Kickstarter. So my job is to work with wonderful people like the folks on our panel today who will talk to you a bit about what it's like to run a project and what makes a good one and how to make it work and so forth. We have with us today Colleen Macklin from local number 12, Wiley Wiggins, and Alex Michaporchik. Did I say that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, yes.
You made it.
All right, so I'm going to start today with a brief presentation just about what Kickstarter is, and then I'm going to hand things over to these guys who are, the real experts. So, okay. Some of my slides didn't quite translate over from Keynote, so apologies if they looked funky. So how many of you are familiar with Kickstarter? And awesome, okay. And I'm going to go pretty quickly over what we are. So we're a crowdfunding platform. We make it possible for people to fund creative projects in a variety of worlds, including games. Every month, tens of thousands of people come to Kickstarter to pledge money to support projects that they're interested in. When you come to our homepage, you get to see things like a person making popcorn, or my personal favorite right now, Octodad 2. We even have curated pages, which is a place for organizations like IGDA to pull together a lot of the different game projects on site and kind of present to their audience some cool things that they think are worthy of support. And if you land on a project and you think it's cool, you can pledge. So this is what a project page looks like. You get a video, you have a funding goal, you have a big green button where people can say, yes, I support this, and I'm going to pledge some money. And in exchange, the rewards are on the right-hand column. Funding is all or nothing, so that means if these guys are able to raise $20,000 in 23 days, they'll get all the money, and they'll also get anything that they raised above. But if they don't reach that goal, nobody gets charged, and no money exchanges hands. So, this is one of my slides that didn't quite turn out right. But these are some statistics about Kickstarter so far. So we launched in April of 2009. In that time, we've seen $70 million pledged to projects. We've had over 20,000 projects launch. Over 10,000 of those projects have been successful. We have over 1 million users, and we have over 700,000 backers. So this is pretty exciting, especially because the first month we launched, there were like 5 users. So it's been really interesting to see this all happen. I don't remember what was on the slide, but I can assure you that it was very interesting. Oh, I know. So quickly, I'm going to talk about 3 things that make a project work really well. And again, this is the big overview, and these guys can go into the specifics. But if you have been thinking, like, how do I present a project on something like Kickstarter and find a way to make it work? Number 1 is having a great video. So these days, when you're surfing around the internet, video is this really powerful instrument for communicating what you're doing to other people. And on Kickstarter, it's so important to be able to show people within a minute what's cool about what you're doing, why you're legit, and why they should support you. So the video is this great opportunity to really show off your stuff. The second thing that makes a project work is having really unique rewards. So one thing to remember is that something like Kickstarter is it's not just a charity, it's not a donation model, it's a place where people are pledging money in exchange for something. So they're not just giving you money because they like you, they're also giving you money because they really think that what you're making is interesting and they want to see what can happen. The rewards that people come up with are really varied, but with game projects, the most popular one is obviously access or a copy of the game itself. And then last but not least, having a really strong community. So you can put together all those pieces and have a perfect project, but if you aren't a part of the community, you're going to have no one to show it to. So it's really important to be active and be doing what you're doing and be talking to people all the time about it and be building that goodwill so that when you do a project, you have an audience that knows who you are and is interested in what you're doing. And I think these guys have all done that. So, we're going to start today with Colleen Macklin, who did a game called Metagame. I'm going to play you her project video, and then she'll kind of talk a bit about her project.
Developers Conference on the third day of the premiere of the Metagame.
Get started.
What's the Metagame?
Yeah.
A real-world card game where you debate and argue with your friends about video game.
There you go.
Hi there, I'm John.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Colleen, and along with Mike Edwards, who's on a special mission and couldn't make it tonight, we're local number 12.
We're here in San Francisco at the Game Developers Conference on the third day of the premiere of the Metagame. What's the Metagame? A real-world card game where you debate and argue with your friends about video games.
A lot of folks here at the conference seem to really be enjoying the game, so we want to get full decks of cards out there so people can play the metagame at home or in their classrooms. So we started this Kickstarter campaign so that we can get the game out in the world.
There are several tiers of funding to choose from, all going to promote the printing and packaging of the cards. Here's how it works. Metagame inspires smart debate about video games and is a great teaching tool.
Join us in the propagation of playful game criticism.
Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at info@localnumber12.com.
Bye.
Thank you, Cindy. And I have such a hard time watching that video. Oh my God, they're such dorks. I think maybe that's one thing you left unmentioned, is that the video is important, particularly if you're incredibly awkward on camera, and act a little bit like Alice from the Brady Bunch with your facial expressions. God. Well, thank you for that introduction. I don't have a deck. I just wanted to maybe say a few words about our experience using Kickstarter, some of the things inherent in actually making a physical game, rather than a video game, just like money-wise, like what that involves and how you actually build a sustainable funding model, which isn't the easiest thing to do when you're getting like nice laminated cards with rounded corners and full-color art printed. So just a little bit about some of the history of the Metagame. It was a project that started actually a long time ago. Eric Zimmerman, the one with the striped tie, and Frank Lance, who's another game designer, he now runs Zynga New York, started with this idea for a project in a magazine, in Wired magazine actually. And it wasn't actually meant to be a card game. It was a sort of debate game with some rule sets, and then converted and turned into a game show on MTV, which had a very short run. And then as we were thinking about, we were invited to the Game Developers Conference, and the IGDA was amazing. They invited us to come and run one of the conference games. The year before, we did a conference game called Backchatter, which was a game that was played through Twitter. And it's now open source, you can use it at any conference. But the generous folks at IGDA ended up hosting the game at the booth, so you could go to the booth and pick up a small deck of cards like this, where you had some game cards and some comparison cards. So it was launched at GDC in March. And also we got some initial funding from the BBC. BBC Games gave us a little bit of funding to get the cards printed. And the NYU Game Center as well. So we were lucky to have funding before the Kickstarter campaign, at least to get the decks made for the GDC, which was a big conference, and we made a lot of decks. We had about 3,000 players, which was exciting for us. GDC is a massive conference. I think about 20,000 people attend. I think last year was one of its largest attendance rates. It was over 20,000. But getting a little over 10% conversion rate, playing a conference game was for us really exciting. The year before, Backchatter kind of took off, but you had to have Twitter, and the internet access at the conference wasn't so great. So we had this kind of fabulous experience, getting the game out to 3,000 players at the conference, and people came up and started asking us, like, how do we get a full deck? This represents about 1/10 of the deck. There are over 150 different cards in a full deck. So we thought, oh gosh, what are we going to do? How are we going to get money to print these decks so that people can have them? They were offering us money. They were like, we'll buy a deck. We thought about a couple different models. We thought about getting some decks made and selling them through Amazon and a couple of other ideas. But Kickstarter was kind of the natural choice because we didn't have the capital to get the decks made in the first place. There you go, Kickstarter comes to the rescue. So we were able to successfully, as you can see, meet our goal plus, ×2, which was great. We had a couple big daddy funders come in and actually buy a conference version of the game, which includes lots of decks of cards for 500 players. But most of our pledges were at the single deck level. So for $25, you get a deck right here. And that's where most of our backers came from. We had 301 backers there. Here's the thing, $25 for a deck of 100 cards, that seems kind of a little pricey, right? I mean, I guess if you're buying Euro games and other kinds of board games or card games, they can run up around that number. We kind of did a little informal testing. We asked people, how much would you pay for a deck? And kind of got kind of a ballpark number. And then we did the math. And we figured out how much we would have to charge per deck to not only get them produced, what's our price point? How many decks do we need to make in order to get a big discount on the decks? Right? Because the more stuff you print, the cheaper the cost of an individual deck is. And finally, how could we embed in the cost additional decks that we could then sell and make more decks? Does that make sense? So for every deck sold, you could fund maybe half a deck or another deck and sell that and keep going. So that over time, our costs would be covered just in terms of printing. We don't really get to pay ourselves much. But because there are hard costs involved in actual printing and production, sort of different from digital distribution, that was kind of the approach we took. And I'd be happy to answer questions about that. Are any of you considering Kickstarter to fund like a card or board game or something like that? Yeah. So I can definitely tell you more if there's interest. But we're so excited about the fact that Kickstarter's around. We've got a couple more projects that we might try to launch through Kickstarter. And what I will say, if you've used it before, it's a super easy interface to use. And it's the tracking and kind of feedback mechanism is also really great. One thing that we found is that these cards, some of them use screenshots. And so legally, we didn't want to actually do that for the real game that people are purchasing. So we're hiring illustrators with the funding that we got for the decks. We also built that cost in. And they get an initial fee and then royalties on each deck, pretty handsome royalties. A lot of any of the profit goes to the illustrators. That too is an ongoing process. We're still making the decks. We launched this in March. So it's going to take us a little while, probably till the fall, to get the decks out to folks. Have any of you ordered a metagame? Yeah, okay, it'll take a little while, but they're going to be amazing because the illustrators we brought in are absolutely incredible. And we actually found many of them through the Kickstarter campaign. So not only is it a great way to launch a game, but it's a great way to meet people. And we sent a message out. We said, hey, folks, anybody here do visual art? And we found a lot of really fabulous game illustrators just through our backers. So anyway, that's our story. Thank you, Cindy.
Thanks, Emily. Okay, so up next we have Alex. his video.
I am you from the future. There's no time to explain. Follow me. Oh, Christ! Okay. I am you from the future. Wait a minute.
Okay, so that's no time to explain our project on Kickstarter. Visit us at tinybuildgames.com. So the reason we decided to go with Kickstarter is that this trailer that you see here, we released a version of that trailer a little bit earlier before the project, and it got a lot of feedback. It got featured on Reddit, we had the article on Wired, etc. So it got the buzz. And a lot of people started asking if we can get, like, hey, where can I order this game? But at the same time, we were like, you know, it's the two of us working on it. We don't really like the traditional publishers model where they force you into pre-ordering stuff for exclusive bonuses. So we were like, no, let's not do pre-orders, let's find something else. And that's where Kickstarter came along, and we decided, like, hey, let's do a Kickstarter project where we have an X sum, which was 7K. We slightly beat that there. So we decided to use Kickstarter to see how much people would be willing to support it and essentially shape the game. So if you look at the rewards that we have here, so we have, well, $1 or more gets you an exclusive poster, which is just, you know, something symbolic. Then we have the biggest backer, the biggest amount of backers for the actual copy of the game was a digital poster, which is actually half off. So we're going to be selling the game for $10, while people could pledge $5 and get the game for half off. But then, if you pledge 25 or more, you basically get access to an exclusive beta thingy that we did, where you would get to play a build of the game, and you would actually get to build levels that can be submitted and end up in the final game. So now we have about 4,000 user-generated levels that we're sorting through to fit them into the actual game. So we allow the community to get in and actually help us determine the size of the game, which I think was great and would never work with a traditional pre-order model. So also another thing was the music. So for $50, we would get people the official soundtrack. And if you like the music that's in the trailer, you're gonna love the soundtrack. We have about 20 songs all originally made for the game, and also funded by this, which I think is great. And if you saw, 27 seconds in the trailer, there is a level where it's like, your ad goes here. So we decided that if you pledge $150 or more, you're going to be able to have an actual ad in the level, which I think is great. Notch, the creator of Minecraft, pledged 2K, so he's getting his own level for that. It's going to be awesome. So one thing that Cindy mentioned, and which I think should be stressed out even more, is that it's all about the community. The community makes or breaks a game. So if you're an independent developer, you could really, spend like a year or more on developing a game, go into these crunches, and then maybe have a hit. I think this is a great way to test if the prototype that you made is going to actually, be worth it. So you could make a trailer, give people a demo, give people a gameplay trailer, and if they like your idea, they will support it. And that's what happened with our project, and I'm very happy with how that turned out. Okay, can you go to...
So we're gonna do Wiley next. He did a game called Thunderbeam, and I'll play his video in a second here. And after we're done with the presentations, we'll just open up and have some Q&A and discussion. So.
Hello, my name is Wiley Wiggins, and me and my friends are making an independent game for the iPad called Thunderbeam. No! Adventure game, and we're really excited to get started making it, and we're hoping that you guys can help us out. This is our first game for iOS, and we all work day jobs, and this is an opportunity for us to do something really cool and creative. It's got an awesome original soundtrack by the band The Octopus Project, which I think will interest some people, and we're offering that soundtrack in a really cool new way to people who donate. And we've also got other prizes like posters and shirts and copies of the game when it's finished. So we hope you'll help us out. If you want to learn more about the game, we're posting a big video with all of our influences and more information about what it is and why it's different than other games on the platform on our website, which is caracasagames.com. Thanks again for helping out.
Ernest dude in his bedroom with a webcam version of the video. There was like a longer, nerdier one where we actually talked about what the game was. So like I said in the video, me and the two lead developers working on this project, we all work full-time day jobs, either in software development or web development. And so this is kind of like a passion project that we've been working on for a while. We have a lot of the engine built. It's an iPad-only game, and it's an adventure game, like an old-school point-and-click adventure game. So right off the bat, you've got like a dead genre that nobody wants to put any money into on a very specific device that isn't going to hit the same sort of like Venn diagram circle as adventure game aficionados. So. And the game is really weird. It's got lots of like children dying in space in horrible ways, and it's the whole thing's an homage to 70s sci-fi. So not the most marketable project possibly, but we really wanted to do it. So we've been doing all of the development work. We've been eating any of the costs for that, but we needed to be able to hire full-time like freelance animators and illustrators who we already had existing relationships with. I did an animated movie in 2001 called Waking Life, so we're using a lot of the same folks from that. But we wanted to be able to pay them. So $20,000, not the kind of budget that you would have for an industry game, but for just needing to pay a couple of artists and everybody else eating the costs, totally doable. The problem was, like I said before, the audiences are very fragmented. This is a super nerdy thing. iOS is perceived a lot of times as being for casual games. More arguable with the iPad, which you can kind of get into stuff a little bit more on. But this is a super deep nerdy game on a device that not everybody has. So we had to try and figure out a way to kind of break it up into stories that more people would be interested in contributing to. So one of the ways we did that was, so we had a lot of prizes. The band that did the soundtrack is actually very popular. One of the things that we did was for our, which prize was it? We've got a digital download. Digital downloads are great if you've got prizes that don't cost anything to make and that you don't have to put postage on. That's huge. Not a lot of people will go for it in the grand scheme of things. Most people will go for your $25 prize if you make that the goodie that seems like a deal. But if you can get some intangible things that you don't have to mail in there, you'll do really well. The soundtrack, we did a soundtrack just like Alex did as a prize, but we found a company called Playbutton that does tiny embedded MP3 players and little like punk rock lapel pins. So we did that. Those are really, really cool. We have yet to get them and send them out, but they're pretty nifty. We also did printed silkscreen posters and shirts. Posters ate our lunch. I would dissuade people from doing posters because the margin got really tight, not because of the printing the poster, which was fine, we compensated for that, or the poster tubes, which we got at cost from the people who printed the posters, but postage on poster tubes is awful. It's like $5 a poster. We also did free copies of the game. This is a little tricky on iOS because you get, I think, 50 promo codes per version of your game. So unless we're forcing out like 0.1 versions of the game with minor changes so we can get a new batch of promo codes, you end up having to individually gift copies of the game to people, which we're going to have to do quite a bit of. Game's not finished yet, so it's not a problem now.
So I'm just curious if you've come up with a solution for the fact that that only works in the U.S., that if someone buys it in Canada
Right.
or the U.K.
You can individually gift to those people. You can only do promo codes for stuff in the U.S., but I believe you can do individual copy gifts. Am I wrong?
I've had trouble with that recently, so I'll
Really?
check it, yeah.
This is stuff that this is a problem we may have to deal with. But we won't be the first ones to tackle it. I mean, it's very common on Kickstarter campaigns to see US games promising a lot of free copies of the games. So I was under the impression that
I was going to mention that I've heard that Apple is going to be doing some new purchasable code version that will be able to be put in things like box games and things like that.
Yeah, I know that they're super against using basically selling promo codes like this. So I would think that they want a more elegant way of dealing with that. We also did combination prizes. So we did a higher price with like shirts plus posters plus soundtrack. We got a whole lot of takers on those. We did some ridiculous stuff. Originally, I really didn't feel like we were going to have high pledgers other than people that we established a relationship with beforehand and have approached them and been like, hey, will you invest in this? We didn't think that we would have prize-seeking high, like strangers. But you know what we did? As soon as I put up first a 400 one that I thought was ridiculous that no one would pledge to, and 9 people did, that were all strangers that I didn't know. And I basically said, we'll give you every prize we've got. We love you. And then when I saw that, I was like, you know what? To hell with it. $1,000, I will be your best friend. I think the copy says, let's talk. Would you like some cream in your coffee? Can we fetch your slippers? No, you can't change the content of our game. Yes, you can have just about anything else you want. All of the prizes, shirt in your size, soundtrack. We'll lean on everybody involved for a random assortment of merch from the band and signed posters. Appreciative tweets about how radical you are, and we will be your best friends forever. Please be gentle. And you know what? 3 people that I never met before gave us $1,000, and they're now my best friends forever. That's pretty much it. Answer questions or whatever. Thanks.
Thanks, Glenn. Thanks, everyone. So yeah, I guess if you guys have some questions you want to ask, I'll start. Okay.
Really
The question, is the Kickstarter work all the world? Or, for example, I'm from Spain and I will be interested, but is there any problem with that?
So currently Kickstarter is available to US residents, so it is limited by that for now. As you can see, projects, you're going to see projects that are based in other countries, and that usually means that there's a team of people working, and one of the people on the team is US based. So, if you're a part of a group that's working in that sort of way, then, there are ways to do it. But yes, technically, like right now, Kickstarter is limited to US residents.
People from around the world can pledge, though, so you have to, if you're mailing stuff, you have to kind of prepare for that eventuality.
Yeah, exactly.
What is the rule then for how much you request to get and how much you actually get? Because I saw every single one of those more than what they actually asked for. How does that work?
It's an interesting question. So statistically, most projects that succeed go over their goals by about 20%. As you can see, I think Wiley, your project hit that almost perfectly. It was about 20% over.
He annihilated it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you win.
We got 300%.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Started.
And you guys were about 200%?
200, yeah.
Yeah. So it varies a lot, but on average it's 20% over.
So people can still give money after the pledge of the game?
Yeah. So as long as the project is still live, people can keep going. And we'll see that it's actually, once a project has hit its goal, that a sort of new influx of pledging will happen because, there's an aspect of this process that feels a little bit like a game, and people like winning. So, yeah.
So how did you get the word out about your Kickstarter project? Like, what was your strategy around that?
Oh, yeah. Twitter, Facebook, Twitter. And, as I mentioned before, we already had 3,000 players at GDC. It's not as if we had their names and could actually contact them directly, but we were telling people at the conference. We decided before the conference was over to do this, and we actually launched the campaign while at the conference, so we were able to guide people to the Kickstarter campaign website. So I think one of the big things is if you have any events, anything related to the development of your game, use that and strike while the iron's hot, and use social media as much as you can.
I would hugely avoid mass mailing people. I think everybody has noise filters now, and everybody's kind of conditioned to ignore one-to-one pleas for money from someone. So one of the things that we did was, you really, when you're doing a Kickstarter, you're turning pre-existing relationships that you already have into money. If you have people if it's games, people that you know in games media, people that trust you and know you're not a huckster and are willing to tell people, people respond to a second party telling them about something. We lucked out really early. We had a Boing Boing posted it and Kotaku posted it in the same day. And a lot of it was kind of on the people into 70s sci-fi, but a lot of it was I knew people in advance and was like, hey, I've never asked you for anything before, but tell people to go to this site. So
for us it was a lot easier because people were asking, how can we give you our money? So Kickstarter link.
When we did our Kickstarter, one of the first things when we were looking at it was I actually looked at yours first and was super impressed by it, but I was also I got a lot of anxiety because it looks like the game was completely done. What made you really? So is it because it's a ton of gameplay.
The whole game is trailer at that point.
Yeah, that really intimidated me because I was like, well, that's why we're asking for money is because we haven't made the game yet.
Basically, with our situation, we decided that depending on how much money we raise, that would be the size of the game.
Right.
So now the game is about 3 times as large as we were planning. So
that's awesome.
That got a bit out of hand.
It's kind of like what's happened with Minecraft. It started out really simple, and now it's this huge sort of user-driven thing. It's awesome.
The gentleman's had his arm up for a while. I'll let you go ahead.
So this is a question for Wiley, right?
Yeah.
And Cindy.
Mm-hmm.
So the other 2 examples seemed like you had pre-buzz between your trailer and GDC. I don't know if you had pre-buzz before you started the clock, but I'm curious whether this is now sort of presumed strategy, do you see a big success difference between people who do pre-buzz before the clock starts?
Absolutely. I mean, the more preparation you do, the better in general. I mean, in life, like that's just a good life strategy, and it works well for Kickstarter as well. And it, obviously everyone approaches it differently. If you are the kind of person who has good press contacts and can do that, that's awesome. But pre-buzz can also just mean wily talking to people beforehand and saying hey,
I found that actually a lot of our friends were the ones that were sort of posting about it and putting the word out, which was also kind of nice too. I mean, you can kind of rely on your social network to exponentially spread the.
I definitely feel like with Kickstarter, when you start your campaign is almost like the end of your job. Like you've set the dominoes up, and when you turn it on, you're flicking them over. I mean, with me, we had a lot of different things. That band Octopus Project is really popular, and they have a fan network that might not have iPads or be even interested in games. But the opening, we had 2 videos, and that quick one is kind of so ambiguous, and we kind of point to the game to the band that different audiences could latch onto it without thinking well, I don't want to play this game. This is too nerdy for me. It was just sort of we're making this cool creative thing. Band, me. I'm like a washed up teen actor. I was in a bunch of movies in the 90s, so there was a few creepy old men in basements that cared about me. So I had stuff going, and we worked on every story that we could turn it into. The animation is Bob Sabiston wrote this rotoscoping engine for a movie called Waking Life that we did. We played into that. We were if you were a fan of this movie, you may be interested in the look of this game. So, yeah, it's just setting things up and then kicking them off.
And then biting your nails until the last day.
It's a crazy emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, it's really it's super fun to check your Kickstarter campaign and keep hitting refresh to see, but it can also be very daunting and sad.
And pretty much everybody I've talked to, there'll be a big surge at the beginning when everybody you've already told about it pledges. And then there's this long plateau in the middle where there's less of a sense of urgency, and you'll pick up a steady stream of strangers that are coming in and are randomly hey, this looks cool, I'll give them $20. And then it looks like you're not going to make it. I mean, not for everybody, not for him, but and then at the end there's that sense of urgency again, and people that you may have a relationship with that we're just waiting for the last second will kick in and do it.
Well, oddly enough, it was a little bit different for us. You say about setting up dominoes and then it just rolls. For us, it was more with the transparency on the page, you see all of the comments, you see all of the feedbacks, the likes on Facebook. We were able to actually, with that, get in contact with the press. So, you're fully transparent on your finances, your support. And you can say, hey, this is popular. Want to write about it?
Yeah. That actually happened to us too because of the Boing Boing post. Well, there was 2 things. Brandon Boyer, who is the chairperson at IGF, is a buddy, and he posted some stuff. And then kind of from that, the Boing Boing thing happened. And then with that, we could say, hey, we made because we made $10,000 in the first week. So we were this thing's going crazy, and then we were able to get more press, even though it wasn't. It was kind of orchestrated that it was going crazy at the beginning, and that helps.
Go ahead.
Does Kickstarter review the people that want to be in Kickstarter? So there's an entry process, I'd assume.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have people raising $500,000?
We have in the past. So we do review every project. So currently it is, we have a proposal system. You submit a very short essay about what you're making, and we are vetting it to make sure it's actually a creative project. There's only 2 types of projects that we don't allow. Actually, there's only 1 type of project that we don't allow, and we don't allow charities. So it's, that's kind of the thing. We're not judging people based on whether it's a good band or a bad band or an awesome film or a good game. It's just, are you making something that fits into a creative category? So that's the process. Sorry, and the second part of your question?
The cost, there are people raising money at different
Right.
levels. And what is the time from when you've been submitted a proposal
Mm-hmm.
to when you all got your projects up?
Yeah. So we review them. It takes about 24 hours or less. So that's the turnover time for when you can be approved. And then when you launch is completely up to you. So there are some people who are kind of really super prepared and have everything ready to go and can launch within a day or two. And then there are people who kind of sit on it. They're like, you know, they submitted their proposal in the middle of the night and then they got accepted and they're like, oh, actually, I'm not ready to do this. And they wait 6 months. It's completely up to the individual. But in terms of have people raised $500,000, we have had projects. The highest funded project at this point was $941,000, I believe. And that was for a watch kit that transforms your iPad Nano into a wearable wristwatch. Some of you guys are nodding like you, all right, maybe you bought one. That was a very popular project. We've had a couple films hit over $300,000. Trying to think of, I think the highest funded game project was about $56,000. And it was a video game, very interesting biological simulation game, which I could go into, but it's very intense. So yeah. Yep.
What criteria does Kickstarter use for deciding to sometimes feature certain projects on their main page and promotion?
Yeah. So, you know, we have an editorial team who makes all of these decisions, and we're essentially looking for things that are interesting, that we think might have a lot of interest to a wide audience, and that are using the site in a really interesting way, have done a good job with their video, have come up with rewards that aren't like your run-of-the-mill things, but something that's maybe a little special and things that we're hoping that other people will look at and be inspired by. So that's it. That's the criteria.
I should actually say that the reason we wouldn't have made our money at all if it hadn't been for the fact that towards the end Kickstarter featured us in their weekly email newsletter, and that was like out of control. That blew us way over.
That really helps, and then also being on one of the curated pages is also very helpful. So IGDA has a curated page, and so does Indiecade. And I know I go to the Indiecade one and IGDA ones all the time just to see what's coming out.
Yeah.
I was wondering, having gone through this process, do any of you feel like there are any negatives associated with the experience?
Well, I have a campaign that is about to launch, and it was rejected, but it wasn't so negative. We got some great feedback and ended up changing some of the things about the. It was about the kind of funding levels we had attached to the campaign, what's allowed. So. I wouldn't say, everyone thinks being rejected is negative, but actually we got lots of good feedback. Other than that, I can't think of anything, I mean, aside from, you know, staying up till 4 a.m, hitting refresh, like the day before it goes, you know, it's over.
I had a hard time with essentially promoting something that hadn't been made yet. It like really went against something inside me. Like I don't want to talk about this yet. You know, what if the project changes? So that was kind of difficult. But other than that, it was really great. I mean, it's really great to be able to connect to an audience on a one-on-one basis, like he said, and just sort of like during the course of the process, you're creating this audience that's passionate about the project, like you are. So,
I think one of the more negative or delicate aspects as a game developer is that you're laying out your cards in front of a huge community, and you're basically subjecting yourself to possible cloning.
Yeah, IP strategy is, I would really recommend, is if you're doing a game project. And it's, I mean, a lot of people here are industry people, but you may be doing like a passion project or something on the side, that you get yourself a lawyer, because if you think about that stuff on the front end rather than on the back end, you'll be better off.
Yeah, we ended up, we're all professors. We don't do this for a living, and we ended up starting an LLC so that we could actually cover ourselves in terms of protecting our own IP and also protecting ourselves against someone coming to us, and just managing the money, putting it in a bank account and having access to it, etc.
Yeah, we made an LLC as well. It seems to be the easiest way.
In the back.
What are some of the most creative and successful awards?
That's a good question.
There's been so many, but I think, a lot of the ones that are most interesting are the experiences that people can have. So a while back there was, this is one of the earliest projects, there was a zombie movie where, I can't remember what the pledge amount was, but you could be a dead body in the movie. Which, you know, I can't, that's pretty cool. There was another one, there was a guy in Chicago who is this kind of tinkerer, hacker person, and he makes homemade theremins, you know, those instruments. And he had designed one that was wristwatch sized, so you could have a theremin on your watch, basically, that you could wear and kind of like make music with, and I think that was like $400, and he only had 3 or 4 of those, but we were all like, I want one of those. Yeah.
There's a ton of theremin music in our game, by the way.
Nice.
Wristwatch theremin.
Love it.
Yes.
You may have mentioned this at the beginning, but how does Kickstarter make their money from the site? I mean, is it traffic based or is it percentage based?
Right. So for every project that succeeds, we take 5% flat fee. If a project doesn't succeed, there's no fee. There's nothing. So, yeah.
What's the percentage of projects that do succeed?
It's about around 50% right now.
50%. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Yep.
This is taxable income too, so you have to budget for both Kickstarter's cut and for taxes.
So having finished a successful Kickstarter campaign, is there anything that you have thought of now that you wish you'd implemented then while it was going on?
I wish I'd done better numbers for things like postage on the posters, and I mean we made money on each of the prizes, but some of the margins were pretty small.
Yeah, I think for us too, you know, I think we're going to be fine, but we didn't anticipate some of the costs, you know, illustrators and some other things that we
I'm
probably
actually
should have
really
thought more
happy
about.
that we decided not to post the posters, but to send digital copies.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, we did both. We had like a downloadable version, and then we had the real version, but everybody wanted the real version.
Yeah.
So is there some kind of like support from Kickstarter in terms of building the budget? Because if you can get your budget wrong, then it's bad for all parties involved. So is there some process, some guidelines, some sanity check done?
I mean, budget is up to the individual person running the project. So, you know, we always tell people like research, and definitely kind of build in a little window because, you know, unexpected things come up, and that's just kind of the nature of the beast. So,
Yeah, you've got to put padding in there for those things.
Yeah, definitely shoot for over. Another thing is that Kickstarter lets you define the amount of time that your campaign will take. And a lot of people are inclined to be like, all right, well, 60 days, that'll be great. Don't do it. Really, over 30 days is a waste of time because you just extend that dead period in the middle where there's no sense of urgency. And actually, you'll get into a situation where, like, after we made our goal with like 10 days to spare. A couple of people were like, "Oh, you got your money. I'm taking my pledge back." They can take their pledges back. No money exchanges hands until you win. And it was like 3 or 4 people, and it was like $30 each. But each time I saw one of those, my heart went up in my throat.
Yeah.
So, you know, make it short and sweet.
So what did you suggest? You said not 30 days, but do you have...
30 days is perfect.
30 days is perfect.
I think 30 days is the minimum, right?
Yeah.
No,
you can do
actually,
20.
so the maximum is 60 and the minimum is 24 hours.
Oh,
So, you know,
okay.
if you're super
All right.
confident, you can do 24 hours. But statistically, 30 days and under has the highest success rate.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we had 45, and we hit our target within 20 hours.
Can you change your time?
No.
If you hit the target?
No.
And he had to sit there for 45 days?
Yeah.
And then you'll end up getting 300% of your target.
Let's see. Oh, how about you in the back? I'll get you next.
Well, the developers don't deliver.
About, did you say fraud?
Fraud from the campaigners.
Right. Wait, from the people creating the
Yeah.
projects. Yeah. So this is very much a social system, and as everyone at the panel has kind of mentioned, like the majority or a lot of the people coming to pledge are people that you know, people that you've talked to already. They're your friends, they're your family. So, by and large, like these social forces are keeping people accountable to what they're actually doing. This doesn't mean that things don't kind of sometimes go slightly longer than you expect. I'm actually doing a project myself right now, and the book deadline was over the summer, and it's now been pushed to most likely this winter. And so these are the kind of things that we're seeing where, deadlines just kind of get extended, and by and large, backers are pretty patient because they know you're really doing what you're doing, and they just want to see it happen. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but generally speaking, someone who's really going to just say, people ask us all the time, like, what's to stop someone from making $50,000 and going on vacation? The person who's going to do that doesn't have enough friends to make $50,000.
And they've got your number too. Like, there's a level of abstraction between your actual email and them, but it's slim. It's like they can press a button on the campaign and send you an angry letter. And if you got $50,000 and ran off with it, your name is mud, and you'll be hearing about it for a long time if you haven't, disappeared.
This
that was
gentleman.
actually my question.
Oh, okay. How about we'll go to the gentleman back and then we'll.
Just kind of following up what you're saying, where they have your email address and your phone number. I mean, have you guys, any of you experienced angry emails or some form of backlash because things taking longer? I mean, how often does that actually happen?
I haven't had it yet, but you do updates because you have like a blog where you do updates, and that continues going even after you've made your project. So you can get on an update and be like, hey guys, sorry if it's taking a long time, here's where we are. And as long as you keep that information flowing, people are usually pretty gracious with how long stuff takes.
Yeah, we update as much as we can, just to keep people posted. And if there are some awards you can send out earlier, let's say you bought the game and a T-shirt, and you can get the T-shirt out, then that always helps too.
Yeah, we're getting letters, when is the game coming out? Because it was supposed to be summer. So we're not working on that.
Yeah.
We'll give a year.
It's good though, it helps you finish stuff.
Yeah, we didn't promise a release time.
Yeah.
You guys got posters.
I think we only have time for one more question, so.
I'm curious, it sounds like the site is primarily a place where you can drive traffic, so you're really the person moving your social network into the site and using the site as an interface for that to happen.
Mhm.
But are there also people who just come there, who just explore it? And if so, do you have any sense of what that breakdown is?
Yeah.
And then if you do, I'm wondering if you can share with us a little bit about who they are in the market, what the demographic of those people are.
I'm pretty sure that the last time we checked, we call them repeat backers. So these are people who have backed more than one project, so we can only assume that they're coming back because they're interested in finding more stuff. And I think they make up about 10% of our total user base right now. And we're fascinated by them as well. We haven't done a ton of the data on who they are yet. There's a guy that's not me. There's a quant guy who's kind of looking into that right now. But yeah, we're very fascinated that there are these people who are coming back. I mean, there's one guy who's pledged to over 400 projects. Yeah, he pledges to like 5 to 10 projects a week, and clearly he has a problem. I mean, yeah, we like him. Like, this is fascinating. And there are those people out there, but in general, most of what we see are people who are pledging to 2 to 5 projects and slowly kind of working their way into that. So, yeah.
I think if you make a Kickstarter campaign, you oftentimes do go back.
You turn into one. I'm doing that now.
You go back and like, what cool stuff can I get?
I've met a lot of really cool people on the site.
Totally.
Yeah. Are we good for?
All right.
Sorry?
I think it's time.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you, our panel.